Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. A good time. This is a great time.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Yo,
That would be awkward. That'd be awkward if you couldn't speak the rest of the time. That would be a lot of me, and I know that you all do not want that. A great time to join SoonerScoop.com. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. But if you want to join us over at SoonerScoop.com on 3, it's a great time. Spring ball in full swing. We were out at practice on Monday. Got to stay for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we're probably going to be, I think the rumor is we're going to be back out there on Wednesday, maybe actually get some video from practice. But George, it was good to get out there. It felt like it was a little bit more normal with everybody getting back from spring break, and actually we were able to talk to some players on Monday.
It was awesome. Got to watch 90 minutes of practice. Got to see a lot of different drills, whether it was individual drills, some team stuff here and there. And so, again, a great time to sign up because we put up a ton of notes. I know Bob Persbillo and I put up some notes from what we saw at practice. You put up some stuff as well. Josh has got a lot going on with recruiting, so good time to sign up. But, yeah, yesterday was awesome. Got to talk to, I think, 8 guys maybe yesterday?
I think that was the final number, yeah.
But got an update from Jovantae Barnes. We'll get into that. Justin Harrington, Jackson Arnold, as well as some other guys. So it was a really good day to be out there. And like you said, Wednesday, it sounds like we're actually going to get some photo and video for you guys to watch.
We'll get into a little bit of the breakdown on what we were able to see. First day back from spring break, it's hard to really make grand, bold proclamations about some stuff, but just seeing some guys out there physically, pretty impressive with some of the guys that we were able to see. And really, I think probably stay at practice for the longest time that we've ever been able to.
Yeah, at least in the time that I've only been here now a year, but even going back to my time working for the school newspaper, it was 15 minutes is usually what you got. So it was awesome, and we'll get into some of what we saw. the tight end room looks totally different. Got to see some of the offensive linemen, some of the young defensive linemen out there, how they kind of fit in. What do they look like? Some of the guys made some plays in different drills. So we'll get into all that in a little bit.
I think that the place that you got to start when you're talking about OU football is with quarterback 1. And we were able to talk to Jackson Arnold yesterday. I thought it was a pretty, I don't want to say boring, but I thought he was maybe more open than he has been in the past. I think more comfortable for sure. I think we saw that with Dylan Gabriel a year ago, him just being in front of all the cameras and kind of having that responsibility of being the quarterback. But I thought just in terms of what he was able to kind of put out there was important. I think that just kind of facing the stuff about the Alamo Bowl and the turnovers, kind of facing that head on, it's a step in the right direction. He has a good maturity about him.
He's not the most vocal guy, and neither was Dylan Gabriel at times, but you saw Dylan kind of grow into that during his time at Oklahoma, and even now his time at Oregon. I think you're seeing that from Jackson. He's kind of taken a step. I remember talking to him, after the BYU game, which was a big moment for him, and he was real kind of short with us, kind of quiet. Not to say he wasn't confident in himself, but it was just a different vibe compared to yesterday where, is he saying a lot of important stuff? Not exactly, nothing groundbreaking, but he's definitely more comfortable answering questions. He's open. He's more vocal. I know I went and asked him a little bit later when there was no cameras around, just, how has he maybe changed as a leader? And he said that the whole, winter workouts, he was trying to be more vocal, try to be that guy that, because when you're the quarterback, whether you like it or not, you have to be vocal. And I think he's kind of embraced that. And I think he was pretty honest, too, in the scrum, talking about just, facing the adversity he did in the Alamo Bowl and also accepting his role as the starting quarterback at Oklahoma.
No doubt. Here is Jackson Arnold talking to the media on Monday.
Comfortable you this spring with everything that you had during December during the bowl prep?
Yeah, a lot more comfortable. Seeing the game or seeing everything on the field happen a lot slower. Things have come easier. The offense is kind of second nature to me, so everything's came a lot cleaner. Everything's a lot smoother. It shows on the field too. We're all connecting really well. We're having a great spring so far.
What's just the work been like with Seth and getting kind of everything? How much newness is there?
It's different for sure. Him and Coach Levy are different personalities, but I love Coach Luttrell. He's a great dude. He's a great coach, and it's been great to work with him these past couple months.
Have you had to do any mental gymnastics to not dwell on the way the Alamo Bowl finished? You played so well, but then you had the turnovers.
Yeah, delete social media. No, seriously, I stayed off of it after that. I'm still off of social media now. Yeah, I try to stay away from it all, but really, no, it's kind of just putting it past me and using it as a learning opportunity. My my freshman year in high school was almost the same exact thing happened. I was thrown into our state championship game my freshman year in high school. Wasn't ready. I was ready for this game. I didn't play good at all, but that freshman year, just from then, I just kind of learned how to battle adversity. And now looking at it, just kind of putting it behind me and using it to learn from my mistakes and to push myself going forward.
What'd you learn in San Antonio in that game?
Just not holding the ball too long and just being quicker in my decision process. The same thing that Coach Latrell has been challenging me with this offseason, just making my decisions, my decision making, and that whole process a lot faster and just speeding things up.
It's so interesting to me when you talk about growth over the course of a spring, or certainly for Jackson going into the first year in the SEC. We always talk about offensive line. We've talked about, they need to have difference makers on the defensive line. And I'm not comparing the two situations, but it reminds me of the situation with Spencer Rattler coming in off of the Cotton Bowl, and everybody just expected that he was going to make this jump. I think Jackson's probably more fit for this, just in terms of maybe maturity, mentally taking that jump. But it's an important spring for him to, obviously take over the reins as the quarterback at Oklahoma. But also, he's having to learn a new offense under Seth Luttrell.
It's huge. It's a huge spring for him, I think, confidence-wise. I think that he obviously is still confident in himself, and I think him talking about deleting social media, staying away from kind of that negativity that can be out there, I think that's important for him because he's going to go through some more ups and downs. Like, he hasn't thrown his last interception at Oklahoma, right?
That would be something if he had. If he goes into
incredible.
the SEC and never throws an interception.
But, he's going to have some growing pains next year, and people need to realize that. I think Jackson realizes that. I think this coaching staff realizes that. But they also have a really high expectation for him, and I think he has a high expectation for himself. So I think that he has the right mindset, the right approach to it. And look, we're out there, we're watching practice, and I think I told you, I said, I don't have any doubt about his ability to throw the football, put it in the right place, and do some things that very few people in this world can do. It's can he get the decision making down? Can he learn the offense fast enough? And I thought it was interesting. He said that Seth Luttrell's offense is very similar to what they were doing last year with Jeff Lebby. I do think the run game and the schemes there will be a little bit different in terms of route concepts and kind of what they're doing there. I think it's going to be pretty similar, but how quickly can he learn it? How quickly can Seth Luttrell teach it? And how do those guys work together? I think it is beneficial that Seth was in that quarterback room for the entire season last year. So they have a rapport, and I think that that's going to be good for Jackson. But it's going to be fun to watch him this spring. Again, we're not going to know at the end of spring practice if this guy's going to be the guy that we all think he can be, but it is a huge for him in terms of development.
We'll get to some of the tools that he'll be able to utilize at the skill position.
He's got a lot too.
It was quite fun watching some of those guys go through the 7-on-7 stuff on Monday. It finally happened, folks. We have talked to Jovantae Barnes. I don't necessarily think it was a secret, but it was good to finally hear from him and basically ask what the hell happened, for him last season.
Yeah, I think that you and I had said it throughout the year on these shows is like, we think he's hurt, but we don't know for sure because we never really talked to him.
Well, because it just didn't make sense. Like he'd be on and then be
right.
off.
And Brent, I think we asked Brent a couple times during the season. He's like, yeah, we think he might be available. He may not be. It's like, what is going on? At one point we're like, is he just being benched? Is he not good in practice? Getting to talk to him yesterday, he cleared it all up. Basically said, hey, look, I was never healthy. He said that there was weeks that he felt like he could give it a go, and then it got to game day and he couldn't, and eventually got to a point where he essentially told DeMarco, hey, I can't play. And putting him in the game was not smart. And I think that, I had some people talking yesterday, well, why was he taking direct snaps against Oklahoma State? And sometimes playing. I think that they were put in a position last year where they had no other option, right? I mean, you had Sawchuk, who was dealing with injuries most of the year. Tawi Walker, people forget, was hurt for a stretch towards the end of the season.
Particularly in the Bedlam game.
Exactly.
Coming out of that Kansas game where he tweaked the ankle.
And I think it got to a point where OU had to decide, do we like a 50% Jovantae Barnes or a true freshman in Dalen Smothers or Caleb Hicks? And they opted for Jovantae Barnes here and there. And he just, I think he was very candid about it yesterday, talking about, it just never was right. He ended up having to rehab most of the back half of the season and all of winter. He finally feels healthy, which is great news because we've seen him healthy. And when he's healthy, he's a really good running back, and I think he can help this team. So it was good news and good to talk to him because I think he's a great talker. He also talked about, I asked him about the transfer portal because I think that was something that we all thought was like, hey, well, he seems like an obvious candidate let's go in the transfer portal. That never crossed his mind. He wanted to stay. He has a really strong relationship with DeMarco Murray, and he wanted to stick it out at Oklahoma.
Here is Jovantae Barnes talking about everything that went down in his sophomore season in Norman.
It was very frustrating, but at the same time, I know God gives himself battles to his stronger soldiers. So at the same time, I just had to take that as a mental error and make sure I can just be happy for my boys and make sure I was happy for Gavin, make sure I was happy for Tywee, make sure I was happy for everybody in the room that they were doing a good job and they could finally succeed in position 2.
Can you take us through what happened? Were there setbacks along the way, or the timeline of everything?
It was just a lot to do with my foot surgery and just the timing and just me kind of trying to rush it and making sure I can be back for the season and be out here for the coaches and make sure that they can depend on me. So I just wasn't ready, and it'll be some times I'll be like, okay, I feel good at practice, I feel good this week, and I'll go back out there and I just wouldn't be able to burst. So the biggest thing is just my coaches and my teammates. I know Coach DeMarco, I mean, he had a lot of injuries in his past time, so he just made sure I just kept my head up and just making sure I know that everything's going to be okay. And just Tywee and Gavin just making sure they're checking up on me, even Marcus, and just a lot of guys just making sure I was okay, and just my family as well. So just that, it helped me a lot and made me keep my head on straight.
Just 68 yards, and that was his season high coming in the Tulsa game. Had 13 carries against Tulsa, 13 carries against Arkansas State. After that Bedlam game, 4 carries the rest of the season. And I think it's going to be exciting. We've talked about how important that running back room is going to be, contingent upon a lot of things, including the offensive line. But you look like you're getting a Jovantae Barnes that maybe is a little bit more closer to what he was as a freshman than obviously what it was last year.
You've got a really interesting group because you've got Jovantae Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk, who have both kind of dealt with some injuries throughout, early in their careers. So you feel really good if those two guys are healthy, but that's a big if, right? Sure. Then you've got Caleb Hicks, who might be the best looking running back they have.
Yeah, physically, he looks the part maybe more so than anybody else over in that room.
Correct. And then you've got, Xavier Robinson, who was out there yesterday. He looks great. You're going to have Taylor Tatum come in, this summer. You've got Sam Franklin, who's kind of an unknown. Yeah. Got to see him a little bit yesterday, but, we haven't seen him, in action at this level. So what can he bring to the table? And then you have Emeka Megwa, who you and I both were like, that guy looks like a football player.
It's incredible.
I have no idea if he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
He's dealt with injuries throughout his career, so we'll see. But like I said, it's a lot of guys in there that you think are talented, you think are going to be able to contribute, but can they stay healthy? Can they get on the field? And what does it look like under this new offense with Luttrell, as well as a totally new offensive line?
It feels like you go Gavin Sawchuk, Jovantae Barnes, Caleb Hicks, and then you just don't know what Sam Franklin's going to bring to the mix. But
how quickly can Taylor Tatum pick it up?
When he comes in during the summer, that trio, though, and specifically here over the course of the next couple of weeks during spring ball, obviously need to keep them healthy. But it seems like that's a good rotation, and I would be almost kind of shocked if you don't look up next season and Caleb Hicks has a big part in that backfield.
And I think that they all kind of bring something different, right? I mean, Sawchuk is kind of a speedster guy. I think he really found his groove late in the season, was starting to see things and was better in terms of seeing the hole, being patient. I think Jovantae Barnes can kind of be a more physical guy, definitely somebody that can catch the ball out of the backfield. We saw a lot of that his freshman year when he was kind of the number 2 behind Eric Gray. And then you have Caleb Hicks, so I think can kind of do a little bit of everything and definitely looks like he has some power to him. I mean, he's got some big legs. I would imagine he could squat a lot, but he's kind of the mystery guy because we haven't seen him a ton. I mean, Dalen Smothers was really kind of that third guy last year when Jovantae was hurt. He was kind of playing a little bit there towards the end of the year. We didn't see a ton of Hicks, but I do think he's someone that can contribute. It's just, who does DeMarco going to trust? Because that's who it comes down to. And we were talking about that yesterday. And I think
that could be the thing that keeps somebody like a Caleb Hicks off the field.
Right.
Pass protection, catching the ball out of the backfield, just doing your assignment.
And I think that's why he brought in an older guy like Sam Franklin,
sure,
who has been experienced, has been healthy throughout his career. Is he wanted somebody that if Caleb Hicks doesn't come along, or if Taylor Tatum isn't ready as a true freshman, that he can turn to a guy like Sam Franklin and he can give you something.
If you really want to change up, give the ball to the 6'2", 220-pound freshman from Midwest City and Xavier Robinson.
He looks the part, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he has some sort of role. Maybe it's a goal line type situation.
Sure.
goal line type back. They did a lot of that stuff with Tawi last year. You wonder, can Xavier Robinson maybe fill that role? He's also somebody who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And I think another thing to watch, too, we saw a little bit of it yesterday. Pass pro is going to be really important. That's a big thing for DeMarco. Those third and longs, who can be that running back that can come in and pick up a linebacker blitz or chip a guy on the end, on the defensive end. So, those guys are usually guys that DeMarco trusts. And Jovantae Barnes, before he got hurt, was really good at that. So I think he's going to have a pretty big role in this offense next year.
I think so many times over the last, however many months since dating back to last August, when it kind of became a known that Jovantae Barnes, there was something going on. We just didn't know what. I think that the mind, you try to find all of the answers instead of maybe the most obvious one, which was that he had some setbacks. So it was good to hear from him.
Yeah.
We finally get that out of the way. And in a way, I'm sure that he's been well past it, but we can move past it. Out here in the ether that has no effect on anything that happens on Saturdays. Really good news also with Justin Harrington. It granted the 6 year of eligibility after missing last year with an ACL injury, and it was the first time that we were able to talk to him on Monday.
Look, this was expected. I mean, I think we all expected him to get this waiver, but you just never know when it comes to the NCAA, and even Justin spoke about it yesterday. It was a lot of anxiety. He was kind of frustrated with how the process was going because he just didn't know if he was going to get to play football again at OU. And so he was like, do I prepare for the draft? Do I, prepare for whatever's next in his football career or life after football? And it's just a big boost for Oklahoma to get him back because I think, one, he's a good football player. When he's healthy, he's been a real contributor, and he was playing good football before he got hurt last year. I think number two, he's just a leader. Being a guy that's played as much football as he has, been around it, been through some key injuries, been around this team. Brent Venables loves him, says he's one of their best practice players that they have. I think that he can be a huge boost for this team, both on the field and off the field.
Here is Justin Harrington talking to the media on Monday, just kind of about the psychology that he had to go through last year and the decision to come back.
It was great news. I had to wait for a little bit, just kind of anxious, a lot of anxiety built up just with my family, but just kept the main thing, kind of kept praying and kept talking to my family and my coaches, just staying ready, whether it be get ready for the league and get ready for next year's combine or get ready for next season. I was ready for either or. It was really about the eligibility thing. I didn't really understand what was the steps to take. So in my mindset, I had to play, and because I didn't think I had another year, and playing on my right ACL, it was nothing. I just put myself in that mindset and let my team know like I'm here. If I can go, I'm gonna go.
What play did it? When did you do it? Do you remember the specific play action?
It was just like a kind of like a reach block, and I foot slipped in the turf, and just friction, and it's kind of just one of those unfortunate injuries, just almost a non-contact injury. So it was. I kind of knew right then, but I tried to just play through it and whatnot.
Harrington's still not fully. I would say 100%. He did say that he is at the 6-month mark, which he is all too familiar with the ACL injury recovery. This one on his right knee as opposed to the left knee that he arrived with.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what does he look like on the field because coming back from an ACL injury is one thing. Coming back from 2 ACL injuries on 2 different knees is going to be difficult. And so does he have that same speed, that same explosiveness? He's known for his athletic ability and being able to kind of cover guys, come up, make a tackle, blitz, do whatever you need him to do. That's why he's playing that cheetah position. So watching his recovery, I think, is going to be really intriguing. I believe he can do it. I think he's got the right mindset. I asked him too, does it help at all that he's been through this? And he said, yeah, he kind of knows where he's at, how slow he needs to go, being patient, when to speed things up. I think it sounds like he's hopeful that he'll be available during summer workouts, which will be great. So again, we'll see what his role is next year. I think they really have some young guys at that cheetah position they like. Jaden Rowe looks fantastic out there. He's coming off an injury. He's going through spring practice. I wonder if he can make a big jump. We haven't seen him a lot. You've got Samuel Omosigo, who I think they really like as well. Deshaun McCullough, interestingly enough, was mostly working with the inside linebackers, so I don't know if he's going to be doing as much cheetah stuff. You've got Kendall Dolby coming back, who's basically playing every single position on defense.
He's going to stay on the field.
Yeah. Woody Washington is playing every single position too, it seems. I wouldn't be shocked if he plays some cheetah.
And that's one of the things too, that with spring ball and going out there for 90 minutes, there's a lot of movement in terms of
And
guys
that's what
going to play other positions.
Right.
and-
That's what this is for. That's what spring practice is
Right.
for. See where guys are most comfortable. Woody's talked about wanting to kind of play some nickel, some slot corner, as well as some safety. He thinks that's where his future in the NFL is, and I kind of agree with him. So I think that you're going to see some guys move around. That doesn't mean that's where they're going to be in the fall, and it may not be where they may start somewhere at the beginning of the season, be somewhere totally different at the end of the season, depending on injuries and those sorts of things. But they have bodies, and I think that's the biggest thing. Last year when Harrington went down, it was Deshaun McCullough and Kendall Dolby, and both those guys do two totally different things. I think they feel a lot more comfortable with some of these other guys that can kind of fill that role. That cheetah role is just really tough. Do you want a guy that can cover? Do you want a guy that can blitz? You want somebody who can do both. And last year they didn't really have that guy when Harrington went down. So to get him back, as well as some of these young guys who are starting to progress, I think is huge for them.
Here is a little bit more from Justin Harrington, just talking about kind of what the process of waiting on the, that F word NCAA and what was to come.
There's little feedback, but that's why there was a lot of just anxiety. There was a lot of gray area. I just didn't know, and I'd never been through that situation before. I kind of leaned on, Caleb Kelly just being in here. Curtis Lofton, I talked to Coach Venables, and that's just different, outlooks and different perspectives of how I should take my situation based on who they know I am and based on what my options are. So it's kind of hard a lot just because I'm not doing and I do have to wait. But again, just with Coach Smitty, just staying ready, making sure my weight is right, making sure I stay active, make sure I stay in the training room 2 and 3 times a day. So, just with the guys around and everybody around this program, just to help me out and just keep me, level-headed and keep me straight on to what I need to do is probably kind of keep me straight.
Truly one of those great college football stories. If he was able to get back out on the field and be a contributor for this team, having gone through the 2 ACLs. You wrote the story last year about him selling food,
Cooking food
out of his apartment.
Yeah,
it's just a really cool story, and he's somebody that obviously very well respected by the team and somebody that all the coaches certainly appreciate.
Yeah, I think he's one of the more beloved players on the team right now, and again, that speaks to I don't know if he's going to start. I think he will if he's healthy. I think he has a chance to be a real contributor on this football team and probably a starter. But even if he's not, I think that's a guy you want on your sidelines, a guy you want in your locker room, and at the end of the day, it's a plus to have him on this roster. And again, like you said, he's been through a lot. I think he can mentor a lot of the young guys who maybe are going through either injuries or just not playing as much as they want to. So it's a positive thing to have Justin Harrington back. And plus, he's a great interview, so it's great for us. So I hope he's great because I want to talk to him more often.
No doubt about it. It will be also, we said we weren't going to make any bold proclamations, but we did get to go to practice, and we were able to go out there and see him. We talked about some of the guys that we had seen and, kind of highlighted some of the guys that maybe stood out, certainly in that running back rotation that we were able to check out. You look at the wide receiver room, it's an interesting collection of guys that all offer something a little bit different than maybe the other. There's a couple guys that, obviously bigger bodied, but Deion Burks, he's easy to pick out, and he's also easy to see that he's pretty fast.
I think he's going to be the perfect replacement for Drake Stoops. We saw him play a lot in the slot yesterday, whether it was 7-on-7 or 1-on-1 stuff. He was kind of always on the inside, and he just looks fast.
Yeah.
And I know we said that when we interviewed him when he was just sitting down, but then finally seeing him out there,
he's smooth about it.
Very smooth, very shifty, gets easy, pretty open, pretty easily. And that's not to say OU secondary is bad, right? He's just really good. And I think they're going to be able to do a lot of different things with him. And he just doesn't seem to drop passes. And again, we didn't see a lot of competitive catches out there, but he just makes it look easy, and I think he's going to be a real weapon for him. And he's already kind of running with the first team, which tells you that they're big believers in him. But there's a lot of guys in that group that, are there enough footballs? And that's a good problem to have. I mean, Nick Anderson didn't even practice yesterday, and I think he's going to be fine. I think it's just a little thing that he didn't practice. He wasn't full contact or whatever. But Jaden Gibson looked really good out there. He's always talking a little trash. He's definitely
he never
loud.
stops talking.
Yeah. Brendan Thompson, I thought looked really good out there. I mean, the dude is still super fast. I think he did the first 1-on-1, beat his guy and scored. And so I think that he's an interesting one to watch if he can stay healthy. Jaquez Petaway, I thought he looked really good yesterday.
Yeah, I think he's the guy that might be flying under the radar.
I think so,
not
too.
A lot of people remember from a year ago.
And it's because he didn't play a ton, and that was because Drake was playing a lot of those slot minutes, and I wonder if that could increase for Petaway this year, or if they try to move him outside a little bit, do some different things with him. I think he's going to end up having a bigger role this year. We'll see. I think he could also be maybe someone that returns kicks or something like that. But that wide receiver room is uber talented, and it's going to be exciting to see what they can do.
It's hard to not look at the young crop of wide receivers too, and not because he's so much bigger than everybody. Ivan Carry-On.
I thought he was a tight end.
Massive human.
He looked like a tight end out there.
But he looks. It's a clean big.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
And he can run.
Yeah.
Like he's not slow out there. I mean, it's not the fastest guy either, but he can
Looked
run
like he
down
had
the
trimmed
field.
up from the time that even Josh maybe went out and saw him during one of his high school games this past
He
year.
looks like somebody that could play next year, especially if, let's say, Nick Anderson or Jaden Gibson isn't healthy. You can throw another big body wide receiver out there. He's somebody that I think could do a lot. I thought Zion Kearney looked really good too. I mean, he's definitely a bigger guy, really good route runner. I noticed. Emmett Jones is not a quiet coach. He lets you know when you screw things up. Zion Kearney was doing a really good job running his routes, and I think that's going to impress Emmett. And I don't know if Zion or Ivan can end up contributing next year, but it's nice to know they have some young guys that are developing, and guys that they think can eventually help them at some point.
And we talked about all of these guys in the wide receiver room and haven't even mentioned Jalil Farouk, who was one of the first persons that Brent Venables talked about when he met with us for the first time to kind of kick off the spring. I know that his season did not end how people, obviously himself included, wanted to see it end, but I still think that there's something there that they're going to get from him.
Well, he's definitely the leader of that group. That's no question about it. He was leading every drill.
Sure.
He was the guy talking to Deion Burks or some of the younger guys, kind of taking them through different drills. And so we'll see what his role looks like. I would assume he's going to be a starter. We'll see if it's inside, if he plays some slot, if he plays outside like he did last year. I think they can kind of move him around, do some different things. But he's going to play a lot. And I think that he's just kind of a guy that what you're going to get with him. And if he can fix the fumbles and the drop passes and those sorts of things, then he can be a really good football player. We've seen him do it, at Oklahoma. So he's someone that, again, people are I think there's some haters of Jalil Farouk out there and some people that also just kind of forget about him, kind of like we did a minute ago. But
I don't think we forgot about him. It was just highlighting some of
the other guys,
some of the new guys that we had seen within the program. But I do think if you're talking about the wide receiver position, you got to start talking about Jalil Farouk.
Oh, definitely. I think that he could easily end up being their leading receiver. I still think Deion Burks is going to end up being a superstar for this team. But Jalil Farouk is, if Jalil Farouk's your number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, you're in a really good spot.
If you're rolling out Farouk's, Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, Deion Burks, Jaquez Petaway, I'll just throw him out there. That's a pretty good fivesome that you're having for Jackson Arnold's disposal.
Few teams in the
and
country.
Brennan Thompson, you got to add him in.
There's few teams that are going to be that deep and have that much talent. And I think it's not a bunch of guys that do the same things, right? You've got guys that can do different things. Nick Anderson, I think he kind of does it all, but he's a big body wide receiver, can go up and get it, and also just somehow finds himself wide open in the end zone often. You got Brennan Thompson, who's a speedster. You've got Deion Burks, who's real shifting, dynamic. You can do a lot of things with. You got Jalil Farouk that does a little bit of everything. You can play him in different spots. So you've got a lot of different guys that do a lot of different things, and that's what you want out of your wide receiver room.
You could talk about all of the position groups on the offensive side of the ball, but I don't know if I left this 90-minute viewing period, so it's a small amount of time, and we didn't see him do a whole lot. I left thinking that the tight end position is going to be pretty interesting, and I was pretty impressed with what we saw from Bauer Sharp yesterday.
Look, when we went to practice last year in the spring and we went out there and we watched the tight ends, one, they didn't even have enough to practice, right? I mean, Austin Stogner, I think, was going through a little bit of a thing last year. He wasn't able to practice. You had the Hampton Fay kid who, was a quarterback and moved to tight end. You had the Josh Fennell guy who, still on the team, and he was just a basketball player who's never played football before. The stark difference this year going out there where you're like, man, that group looks different. They look like they can really contribute to this team. I think Bauer Sharp is a guy that's going to play a lot for him. He's really physical in the run game. I noticed that yesterday in some of the team period stuff. And then he can go up and catch the football. Super athletic guy. And then you add in Devon Mitchell, man. And it's one thing when you see him, in person without pads on. But when he's out there catching the football and running down the field and in full stride, that dude They haven't had a guy. I think I said to you, I don't know when's the last time they had a guy, and you said Jermaine Gresham, and I would agree. I don't think they've had a guy like that at tight end.
With all due respect to Braden Willis, it's just a different kind of body style.
Well, I mean, Devon Mitchell's, probably 3 or 4 inches taller than Braden Willis, and he's only 18 years old, and
he just moves so fluid.
On his legs, his butt. I know that's weird to say, but he is a massive human being, and it's going to be interesting to see how they use him. I think he probably has some growing up to do in run blocking and developing there. But I'd have to imagine
a pass catcher.
Yeah,
he can go catch
red
pass.
zone guy.
Yeah.
He is, and he can run. I think the other ones that are interesting, Cade McIntyre, I think can help.
I continue to think he's going to play some type of role. That kid's too good of a football player not to.
He just looks like a football player too. Like, he's not the biggest guy out there, but I think he's going to be physical. I think he's going to make competitive catches. He's fast. He can do a lot of different things. And then the kind of the wild card is Caden Helms.
Yeah.
He's still not full contact yet, but just seeing him out there in pads, kind of running around, I think he's somebody that looks the part. We'll see if he can play football.
I put it on the message board, kind of in the recap from practice on Monday. It kind of almost to this point sounds asinine to say, because he's been here for 2 years, hasn't been able to get on the field. All of that has been because of injury. But when you look at what he offers physically, and then remember the type of player that he was coming in from high school, I still think that obviously his best football's ahead of him, but he just needs that opportunity. He has to stay healthy.
Yeah, and I think you can do different things with him. Like, I think he's someone that you can split out. He doesn't need to be somebody with his hand in the dirt all the time. Like, I think he can just do a lot of different things. He can run. I think he's a pretty good pass catcher. So it's going to be interesting to see, can he contribute? But I walked away thinking, okay, Bauer Sharp is going to play more than maybe some people thought. I think he can do a lot of different things. We also saw him throw the football one time.
Yeah, he can throw it.
He can sling it. He used to be a quarterback, so I wonder if you put in a fun little package for him out there, maybe a trick play or two. But we didn't even get to see Jake Roberts. He was out.
I was going to mention him.
He didn't practice. We got to see him. Good size. I think you kind of know what you're going to get from Jake Roberts, and he can kind of be the leader of that group as the veteran. But
I think in like some type of formations, if they want to go two tight ends, you get him on.
He's probably going to be your best blocking tight end from the start. And so I think you can do some different things. It's just good to see that they have more than one guy.
Yeah.
Because they honestly just did not have anybody else other than Austin Stogner. And I would also say, not only do they have more guys that you can play, you also have guys that are more athletic. And I don't want to take anything away from Austin, but that's just the truth. These guys are faster, they're stronger, they can do some different things. I think that, and with Seth Luttrell being a fullback guy, you wonder what kind of plays can he draw up for that tight end room.
In one of the interviews, we didn't put it in the clip that we showed with Jovantae Barnes, but he's basically like, Seth Luttrell's running the football. And as a running back, I love to hear that. I would imagine that the tight end position is going to be equally as pleased with the way that Seth Luttrell calls a football game. Can't get through practice without mentioning, and believe me, it's March. It's hard not to be excited about David Stone. He made a couple plays on an inside drill, a couple tackles for loss, and it literally just blew him up.
Yeah, he looks really good. Look.
It's March. I know.
I'm not going to say he's going to be a freshman All-American, but to see those signs this early is always great. And it's not saying, he wasn't doing this against the starting offensive line. There wasn't really a starting offensive line. It was a mix up of different guys, and same with the defensive line.
Sure.
They were rotating and doing some different
mashup.
things. Yeah, it was no, I think he beat a couple freshmen a couple times. He beat a couple older guys a couple times. Like it was a mix up. But to see him have that physical ability, be able to be quick on his feet,
instinct reaction, all that kind of stuff.
That stuff, that's huge. To see this early in his career, I think is great. I think he's clearly going to be somebody that's going to be a contributor next year. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter. Maybe he is by the end of the season, but he's definitely somebody I think that can help them. And again, he looks like he has the right size, right? I think he could probably still put on about 10 more pounds if he wanted to, if they want him to, but he certainly was somebody that stood out on the defensive line.
I think that, too, if you look at, what's to come with the spring transfer portal, if they could add another guy inside, especially on the interior from the defensive line position, you do it. I think the same could be said for the offensive line, depending on where you feel like that need is going to be. It's going to kind of be interesting to see how all that kind of comes together here over the next couple, I guess about a month.
Yeah.
Whenever the portal opens for the spring guys.
Yeah, I think you definitely would like to add one more on the defensive line interiorly, just because I think they really like Marcus Strong and Champ Sanders, and both those guys looked pretty good yesterday. Grayson Halton as well. I think somebody that's going to play quite a bit, but you'd like to go out and get somebody with a little bit more experience, because those guys, I know that they've been in the program now a couple years. Maybe Grayson Halton's been here 3 years now, but I think that if you can go out and get a 4-year guy, sort of fill that Jacob Lacey role that you thought you were going to have, that would be huge. Because as much as you love David Stone and what he's shown, he's not somebody that you want to throw out there and play 50% of the snaps on the defensive line next year. I think you kind of need to slowly progress him and then kind of throw him into the fire. But I think the same thing with the offensive line. You'd like to have a couple more bodies up front. And maybe not just total experience. I think they've got some good experience from the portal. But if you can bring in a couple more guys up front, especially on the interior offensive line, I think that could be a huge help.
I thought Grayson Halton looked pretty big.
He did. He looked good.
He's added good weight.
And he's vocal. He's always been kind of a vocal guy, but you can see
he was
that
very vocal yesterday.
I think he's kind of taken on a little bit more of a leadership role. I know DJ Terry.
A little bit more comfortable, a little bit more mature.
DJ Terry's definitely the leader of that group.
100%.
But I would say, it's Grayson Halton, Devon Sears as well, I think are the next two. And it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if Devon Sears, I think, is almost up to 300 pounds. Can he be a guy that can contribute in his final year of college football as well? He's kind of that forgotten guy of that group. So it's an interesting group. Like I said, you've only really got one guy that's played a lot of football, and that's Terry. Other than that, you've got a bunch of guys that you think can be good, but you haven't seen it yet.
We might have to do an entire show just in terms of, and hopefully we'll get some video on Wednesday of some of these guys, but just the overall restructuring or rebuilding of what is an Oklahoma secondary.
Oh,
it's drastically different from what it has been. And that's when you start talking about Woody Washington and moving him around. And it's like, they have plenty of depth at cornerback. Like we talked about it on the radio this morning. We could spend 15 minutes talking about the cornerback position, and then it was like, oh yeah, and Jacoby Johnson, he might be the best of all of them.
Yeah, he looked really good yesterday. I think Des Malone is a name people need to know. He's going to play a lot. We didn't get to see Gentry Williams. We probably won't get to see Gentry Williams.
Looks good
all the spring. Yeah, he looks fine. He's out there in pads, but has tennis shoes on. Is not going through practice. Makari Vickers was also not going through practice yesterday. I think he's a little dinged up, but I thought Jacoby Johnson looked good. Josiah Wagner looks like he's
added good
developing.
Weight.
Yeah. Des Malone, though, the other one that people forget about, myself included, Kenai Walker.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you have a crush on him, but I think he's
physically,
somebody.
he looks maybe the most impressive out of all of them.
Yeah. And he was playing good football at the end of the year last year. I mean, he had to come in and fill in for Gentry quite a bit, and I thought he played pretty well. So
got nicked up in Provo, if I remember.
Yes. And they had to play, I think, Josiah Wagner in that game a little bit, and Makari Vickers. But, he's somebody to watch. Woody, I don't think he's going to play much corner. I think he's going to play some nickel. He played a lot of safety yesterday. That safety room, they got some talent, but they don't have a ton of depth when you really think about it. You got Billy Bowman, who didn't practice yesterday, Robert Spears-Jennings, who I'm really high on, and Peyton Bowen. And then after that, you got a lot of young guys. Michael Boganowski looks good out there. Jaden Hardy as well.
I thought both of those guys look good. And for freshmen in their first semester, look impressive. Probably, I would lean to the side of thinking that both of those guys will probably redshirt.
Correct. I would. If one of them ends up playing, I'd probably pick Boganowski. He looks a little bit more ready to play.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's kind of why they're moving Woody back there. Is you're going to need some veteran presence, and I also think you're going to see OU do some different things defensively, schematically. Like, I think you're going to see more 3 safety looks. You saw that in the bowl game quite a bit. Zach Alley is known for running some of that 3 safety look stuff. And I think you're going to see, lineups where you've got Billy Bowman, Peyton Bowen, Woody Washington out there, or, Billy Bowman, Robert Spears-Jennings, and Woody Washington. You're going to have a lot of cover guys, third and long, those sorts of situations. So they're plugging and playing a lot of different guys. It's just the amount of bodies they have that you feel comfortable with out there, that's the impressive thing. I can't remember last time OU had a secondary with that many guys.
What do you think they do with Jaden Rowe?
I have no idea, because he looks like a linebacker, but he was working with the safeties, and I think he's going to end up probably being a cheetah. That's what he looks like. I think he at Union was didn't he win state track in the 100 meters or something? That's incredible at that size to be able to run that well. We'll see. I think he's still kind of developing. I think the mental part is still where he's kind of needing to grow the most, is understanding what they're doing defensively and what they're asking of him. But he certainly looks like an athlete. He falls in that same category as Emeka Megwa, where, man, he looks great getting off the bus, but can he play football and do the right assignment? And that's a big thing for Brent, and I'm sure it's the same thing for Zach Alley, is do you know your assignment? Do you know where you're supposed to be, on every single play? And so I think that's the biggest area of growth for Jaden, and also just staying healthy. I mean, he's battled some injuries. He needs to get over kind of that injury bug.
No doubt about it. Here is a little bit more from Jackson Arnold, Jovantae Barnes, Jalil Farouk, Dejon Terry, Jacob Sexton, and Danny Stutzman making his first spring debut with the media on Monday.
It's a lot different. I love DG to death, and that's my guy, but it sucks being a backup. It really does. As much as I love this game and love to play the game, it sucks to be on the sideline and watch somebody else play. So, last year it was more kind of learning the offense and just kind of understanding my role and how to best fill my role last year while DG was the guy. And, this year just kind of settling into this new leadership role and kind of getting closer with my teammates and just learning to lead this team. It's been different, but it's been really good so far.
I feel like Jackson is kind of, he's Jackson. He always brought energy. He always was happy. And, since day one when he stepped on campus, he always was acting like he was the starter. So he knew since day one it was going to be his time. And when the opportunity came, he took over. He looks great.
Just continue to be more of a vocal leader, just working on my craft, perfecting my craft first, then making sure everybody around me is doing the same, just getting that extra work in, making sure my group, we're all just working, continuing to get better, getting the jugs in, extra work like that, being the first ones in, last one out, just always getting better day to day.
The expectations are always high. Like it says right here, we prepare with purpose and effort with technique and all in commitment to do our best. So I feel like everybody has that thing in them where all right, we got to compete to be the best, So everybody's all in, locked in. So yes, sir.
You guys talk about, I think the offensive line group is going to be a position that everybody talks about until the season begins. You guys talk about that and maybe the negativity that's outside of the building right now?
Yeah, everyone has an opinion, but we got to cloud it out and focus on ourselves. And because if we're focused on what they say, then we're not going to be able to focus on what we need to do to get right.
Oh, it's been amazing. He's a great coach. He really understands and relates to us. He's a different balance from Coach Venables, which is really good. He understands some things, and it's good to go to him because he knows exactly what we're thinking.
How exactly is he different than Brent? Because we watch him, he looks like he has a lot of the same mannerisms as Brent at times.
Yeah, at times, there's always that, the relation, He's a little bit more calmer, so it's like when Coach V's, yelling at you and you're chewing you out and not really giving you an explanation, you can go to Coach Alley and he'll really, break it down, complex. He's always he's always behind the why, not so much how. So it's really nice in that sense.
The great Danny Stutzman on Oklahoma first-year defense coordinator Zach Alley, and like we said at the beginning, hopefully we'll get to talk to him on Wednesday.
Yeah, I it was fun watching him at practice, kind of see how he interacts, and he definitely has some Brent in him. I thought it was also interesting. He was pretty much running the defense at times.
Interesting.
He was kind of lining guys up, talking to guys at every position. It makes you wonder, what is his role going to look like? So I'm excited to kind of ask him about that. I also thought it was interesting. Last year when we'd go to practice, you'd go out there and you'd watch the individual drills, and Brent was always with the linebackers. Brent wasn't with the linebackers yesterday. Zach Alley was the only coach over there working with the linebackers. So I think he's going to have a pretty big role in this. They trust him to do a lot of different things. It's funny, Danny said that he's kind of the calmer of the two. He still, ripped into some people yesterday at practice, which is not shocking considering he is, it's cliche to say, but he's literally like a clone of Brent Venables.
It's very bizarre to watch.
Yeah,
at least from afar. We didn't see a whole lot, but we did see a little. We also did see a little bit of kicking and special teams.
Yeah.
Tyler Keltner, the transfer from Florida State, by way of what? Eastern Tennessee or something like that?
Eastern Kentucky?
Eastern Kentucky. That's
Yes.
right. EK. My apologies to the EKU contingent out there. That's on me. He kicked alongside freshman Liam Evans while we were out there on Monday.
Yeah, I think Zach Schmidt had some class, so he didn't show up until a little bit later after we had been kicked out of practice. But Tyler Keltner, I think both of them went 3 for 3, 25, 35, and 45 yards, somewhere in those ranges. But Keltner looks like he's got a pretty big leg. We knew Liam Evans did, but I would not be shocked if Tyler Keltner maybe ends up winning that job. He looks pretty accurate. But it's going to be an interesting race, and I do think that that's a competition that is not going to be won in the spring. Maybe you get a leg up in the spring, no pun intended. But I think that this is a competition that's going to go well into fall camp, and I wouldn't even be shocked if it goes into some of the games early in the season.
Certainly a position and, just a special teams unit that needs to be much improved.
Yep.
And it's going to be kind of interesting to see what Doug Deacon's able to do with that group as he comes in from San Diego State. You survived Las Vegas?
I survived. Depends on your definition of survive. I lost quite a bit of money, but that's okay. That's what happens in Vegas.
Interesting. Yeah. How did everything go with the games?
Not good. Wow. Not good. I had Oregon. I had Oakland. All these games on Saturday.
There's nothing worse than losing a couple games against the spread in overtime.
I know.
And especially when you get outscored 15-0 like Oregon did.
It was brutal, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, no better weekend to go to Vegas than March Madness. That's for sure.
You know what the good news is?
There's more games.
Tonight, NIT action.
Oh, there you go.
If you're into
if you're a degenerate, then that, you'll be tuned in.
No doubt. I do need to apologize to George as well because, man, I know it's been a rough week. You come back probably hungover from Las Vegas, and then everything goes down with your guy, as you call him around the office, Puff Daddy.
Yeah, P. Diddy's having a tough.
He's having a week.
Tough week.
He's in Antigua, supposedly. Interesting.
Yeah, well, that's where I'd go if I was in trouble.
Well, we're going to get kicked off YouTube. Once again, a really good time to join SoonerScoop.com. Dollar promo right now. Plenty of coverage from practice on Monday. We're going to be out there again on Wednesday. And, I think before you know it, we're probably going to be talking about spring game, which obviously coming up on April 20th. Otega Oweh enters the transfer portal. We'll catch up with Bob Przbillo on the stickball report, talking softball. The softball team off to a 31-1 start on the year, which, it's kind of crazy that it could be seen as disappointing that they're 31-1 and the number one team in the country. Baseball loses 2-3 at L. Mitchell. Hell of a way to recap a Friday night in which you have the first combined no-hitter since 2005 and you get swept in a doubleheader on Saturday. Kind of weird, too, that they've had to open two of their first three series in conference play with doubleheaders because of weather on Saturdays. So they need to bounce back. Good time to do that. Oral Roberts on Tuesday in Norman, and they finish out the 8-game homestand at the Dale coming up this weekend against a Lamar team that's actually
not bad.
19-4 on the year so far. So we shall see. The OU women get beat out in the NCAA tournament on Monday night. We were trying to keep up with that as we were doing interviews and stuff. I feel bad. I mean, you're up 4 with 2:41 left, and all of a sudden Indiana goes on a 10-0 run. The good news is you have everybody coming back.
Yeah, everybody but Kennedy Tucker, who was kind of that backup guard off the bench. But
I think you circle year number 4 for Jenny Baranczyk as kind of the year that you really –
you'd like
it's
to get
tough
over the
to
hump.
ask, but you want to get over the hump into the Sweet 16.
And it's tough. I mean, women's college basketball is it's one of those sports that a lot of the best players go to the same schools. Next year in the SEC, you're going to be facing a lot better competition when you talk about South Carolina and LSU, if Kim Mulkey is still there. But it's going to be a really tough conference, but they're going to be very experienced. They're going to be one of the more veteran teams in the country. And man, they had it yesterday. They really did. And you look at the free throw discrepancy. I know some people were complaining about that. I think Indiana had 16 more free throws, but at the end of the day, OU's up 4 with 2 minutes to play. You got to be able to close it out. But good learning experience, great atmosphere at Indiana. I mean, 12,000 people.
Looked incredible.
It was awesome.
The entirety of the sport in women's basketball right now is pretty special. When you look at all the
look
freshmen that are out there, Iowa and Caitlin Clark, what she's doing. Paige Beckers, it looks like she's back from the knee injury with UConn.
She's a baller.
The Juju Watson girl from
USC.
Yeah, she might be better than all of them when it's all said and done. She is really good.
It's fun right now, and I think that OU's in good hands with Jenny, leading the way.
No doubt. Real quick. Well, we'll get into the Final Four stuff next week.
Okay.
I was going to ask you some who you wanted this weekend, but that's all right. We'll do that. We'll be back here. Team Paige, right? Yeah. # Team Paige.
Yeah, UConn.
We like Paige Beckers. George doesn't like Caitlin Clark. I don't know why. All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back, though, on probably Thursday. We'll wrap up everything that we see out at practice on Wednesday. Make sure that you take advantage of the promo right now on Soonerscoop.com, and we'll see you right back here on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll talk to you next time.